What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're watching this from. So, I don't know how it happened, but we somehow had both a quiet and a really exhaustingly loud week in the world markets today. I was sitting here and I'm like, oh my God, I've got so much to talk about. But then I'm like, nothing crazy really happened. It was just, we had the ups and downs. We had the correction in the cryptocurrency and all the big markets, which was paired with the announcement of the capital gains. So, everything came down unless you were fully diversified, which is something I talked about in my article that I wrote a little bit ago. You can avoid all this stuff. But beside the point, I did get dressed up for you and I am sunburned. I'll get that out of the way real quick. So, what we're talking about today, a statewide issue and a national issue. And the national issue has to do with cars, so I'm excited. But it does affect everyone. Either way, best week ever. I never get to talk about my cars. Okay, so let's dive in real quick. The local issue I want to talk about is the Florida insurance costs. The reports have now been coming out because all you've heard for the past X amount of months since the pandemic pretty much started is everyone's moving to Florida. Everyone's moving to Florida. Is why do you want to move to Florida? Well, you get to work in the sun because now you're working from home or on a beach, wherever you want to be. It just makes logical sense. The problem is the bill is now coming due. People are realizing that their homeowners insurance costs are just through the roof. The quote I saw was kind of scary. It was basically a 20% increase is lucky. That's horrifying. But it is to be expected. It's, human short-term memory. Everyone said, well, we want to be in Florida, and they didn't think about this. So, interestingly, I had this conversation a few months ago with a local professional who, in my opinion, is the smartest guy I've ever met. He's a much older fellow, but holy cow, he's a genius. So, my question to him that I posed was, when is the Florida migration going to stop? And his exact words were, you won't believe me, his exact words were, when the insurance costs go high enough that it's more affordable to live up in the high tax states up in the Northeast. The premonition came true. It's wild. So what that told me is that this has happened plenty of times before. It's nothing new, which means we shouldn't freak out about it. So what I'm betting on, what I'd predict is that in the next few months, you're going to start to see articles and news things talking about Boston, the next best place to live, or your Midwestern vacation getaway home. It's going to be the outmigration of all the Florida inns. And what I think might happen is I think the people who were born and raised here are going to have an open mind about that, and I think they're going to be the ones leaving. I almost want to bet that the seasonal migration down from the Northeast, from coming from out West, is going to be a little bit more permanent. But I got two fun statistics for you on this. So this past year, 8% of all claims nationwide, homeowners insurance claims, were from Florida. That's not a significant number, whatever. It's a little more than our fair share of the 50 states. Now, this is interesting, though. We had 76% of all of the nationwide homeowners insurance lawsuits. So that means with all the new people coming in, all the insurance companies are freaking out. They are not able to pay. They're taking losses everywhere. And I dove into this issue a little bit. I don't want to go too far because I try to keep this top level, try to just make it a casual conversation about why you shouldn't be worried about this stuff. Unless you recently moved to Florida, then maybe I'd be worried about it. But apart from that, if you didn't, or if you've been here your whole life in a non-crazy city like Miami, which I don't know why you'd live in Miami in the first place, different issue. Either way, with all those insurance lawsuits happening, you have to wonder, is this going to lead to more insurance regulation? I mean, the industry is already kind of a scam half the time. It's wild what they do to us. That's what's on my mind. I can't imagine that there aren't going to be so many people upset that they put pressure on the local politicians to try to regulate this industry a little bit more. It'll be interesting going forward to see if we do repeat the cycle. Now that everything's kind of out in the open, it's harder for us to say, well, we didn't know this was going to happen, because it has happened before, but now it is in public record. This cycle is the most, everyone can see everything. Everything's on social media as you're watching this on social media right now, or YouTube, or wherever it is. We're not going to be able to forget it this time. My take. Okay, now we're going to move on to the fun ones. So this is a national issue. So Tesla had one heck of a week, and I don't mean that in a good way. They had so many bad headlines that I don't know how they ended the week. Their shareholders were making money, their stock price was up, and I'm like, how does this happen? So 3 big things happened this past week. The first one was the Communist government of China basically said, we will not be using your vehicles because we're worried that the dashboard cams can be used to spy on our military. I've actually used the program for the dashboard camera. It's impossible. It takes things in clips of like 10 minutes and they load really slow. And I got a MacBook Pro and it can hardly read it. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about that, China. I really wouldn't. And again, if you've ever seen Elon Musk do anything, he does not care about that kind of stuff. He's like, dude, I'm just here to save the world. It's not a big deal to him. So they got that big hit because I know China was one of the biggest customers, and they're most of their competition does come from China for now until GM and Ford and the rest of those. They're so behind. I don't know how they got this behind, but until they catch up, most of their big competition is coming out of China, and then of course Volkswagen and Germany. The second one was the Autopilot mishap. I have not dug too deeply into the story, but to my understanding, what happened was a car brutally crashed and I think killed 2 people, but the 2 people were in the back of the car. The car was on autopilot, but when they ran the diagnostics, autopilot was not engaged. There's a couple different ways this could go. First off, if you're sitting in the back of your car, letting it drive yourself, it's just a bad idea. It's a really bad idea. But it's horrible because people died about this has to be addressed because there was a loss of human life. That's a really big deal. But the whole report about the not being engaged, he's come out and said, and if you've ever used the autopilot in a Tesla, it doesn't work. It's not effective at all. We're not there yet. We're 5 years out before cars can drive themselves at least. Okay, I'm not going to don't talk in absolutes. I'm not going to make that bet. But we're not there yet. And I think we as a society need to basically embrace this new technology and say, we're going to be gentle with this. We're going to accept that this is going to be a slow roll. And the third interesting thing that came out was, I don't remember who proposed it, but somebody basically was like, hold on, all we've been talking about is the big worry that people have with these cars is they don't have the range. Like if I wanted to take a trip down to Fort Myers, which is where I was last weekend, that's about 400 and I don't know how far it is, but I don't think I could get there in one trip in a Tesla. I'm in Jacksonville. Either way, the point was people are concerned about their range in their cars. So we're like, all right, how do we convert gas stations, which is what everyone's brains went to. And then somebody was like, hold on. We don't need to convert gas stations. That's too costly, takes too much time, and we don't want to deal with it. What instead we do is the property owners at retail places put up their own charging stations at their retail centers with all the shops, and you just pay there while you're out shopping. So you're on a road trip. You don't want to sit at a gas station and charge for 45 minutes. That sounds miserable. But you know what you could do? You could go pull up to a Tommy Bahama and shopping next door, plug your car in, say, yeah, it's going to be 10 minutes. Let's go eat for an hour and a half. And boom, you go eat, you go shop, you go hang out, you come out, your car's charged, get back on the road. That's genius. And you know what that does? That creates money for the property owners, for the people who own those retail stores. It creates convenience for the people traveling. It kind of takes away your reason to not get one of these things if that was your only reason. It's great. I would love to see this idea be brought more into it. So I think that was kind of the saving grace for the week. So I'm going to end that conversation with, why should we cut Tesla so much slack? A corporate responsibility, I think, is very important to myself and many other people. We say, listen, these companies have gotten so big that now they have to act friendly towards us to remind us that they're still human behind the steel curtain, whatever they've got up there. Here's why I think we should cut them some slack. A company such as Tesla with a new emerging technology, and there are several others in the works that are being done, they're basically just experimenting, trying to figure out what worked. And the things that people are getting upset with them about are happening with other companies too, bigger companies, Ford, GM, Chrysler, all those. They happen over there too all the time. There's recalls for pretty much every vehicle on the road. Why are we so worried about the startup that has exploded and is aimed at, one, changing the world, and two, getting us to the moon somehow? I think we should cut them some slack. I think at this point, the other companies are not doing anything better, and they're just going to use this to put fire on them. So that is my hot take on that. I think it's really important that everyone just take a deep breath, make good decisions whenever it comes to new technology, and try to accept that it's going to be a long ride. All right, I'm going to try to get these on YouTube eventually because I think that's probably the best way. We need to consolidate down to one platform. But either way, I'll see you next week. Have an awesome week.